Thank you, Steve, and thank you to all of you for joining us today for the webinar, Finding the Right Fit, Choosing Dementia Caregiving Programs for Your Organization and Community. The National Alzheimer's and Dementia Resource Center webinar series is supported by the Administration for Community Living. Before we start, Erin Long of the Administration for Community Living will provide a brief welcome. Erin?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today to learn about choosing the right caregiving programs for your organization and community. I want to thank Dr. Heather Meny and Dr. David Bass for generously sharing their time with us and helping inform us all on what is out there for us. So with that, back to you, Sari. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. So as you heard, today's presenters are Dr. Heather Meny and Dr. David Bass. Just a brief introduction, Dr. Heather Meny is a senior health policy researcher in the Aging, Disability, and Long-Term Care program at RTI International. She has 15 years of federal and nonprofit experience and expertise in aging and disability programs and services. Her research focuses on older people, people with disabilities, and long-term services and supports with a specific emphasis on people living with dementia, their family caregivers, and formal caregivers. We also have with us today Dr. David Bass, who's the Senior Vice President and Senior Research Scientist, in addition the Director of Center for Research and Education of the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging, a premier not-for-profit research, service, and advocacy organization based in Cleveland, Ohio. He has led over 80 funded research projects, the results of which have been widely published in scientific and clinical journals, and have been used to develop innovative programs for older adults and their family members. Without further ado, I will turn the program over to Dr. Heather Meny for her presentation, and following her will be Dr. David Bass. Thank you.
Thank you, Sari. It's a pleasure to be here today and talking about the topic, Readiness for Action, Key Considerations Before Launching a New Dementia Program. So this is hopefully a nice primer before David gives us a really great overview of a new tool that's available. Before I really get started on this, though, I really want to, again, thank Sari and Erin for inviting me to talk today. And also, I want to acknowledge my colleague, Sally Bolin, at Memory Lane Care Services, as well as the ASA Leadership Institute, where Sally and I have been able to hone the different talking points on this topic that we've been discussing over the last few years. So before you really find the right fit, I would argue that you and your organization need to know if you're ready for a change and what that change might look like. My presentation today will highlight important areas that organizations need to consider before they embark on introducing a new program or service in their community. Over the last few decades, there has been amazing growth in the availability of dementia interventions, and specifically a growth in the number of interventions that have a research or empirical basis for outcomes that benefit people living with dementia and or even their family caregivers. Some of these interventions have been used in non-research environments and delivered through local organizations. As I noted before, in a little while, Dr. Bass will share with you a resource for how to identify some of those interventions and programs. An exciting part of the growth in available programs is that organizations can identify these quality programs that meet the needs of the organization and their clients. For example, if your organization has a mission to serve people living with dementia by focusing on the strengths of that person, there's a program that has that as a really core focus. More and more often, I hear about foundations targeting a focus of their grant awards on dementia and caregiving. And evidence-based dementia programs meet that criteria presented by foundations and even federal funding sources. An important but not often talked about component of evidence-based programs is the role of collaboration. Whether that's the collaboration of service providers working together to deliver the program or to cross-train on program components, or maybe it's a service provider evaluator collaboration to monitor the delivery and assess the quality of the program being delivered. Collaboration can take time, but can also lead to stronger programs that support people living with dementia and family caregivers. While all this sounds good, there are challenges. Who should you collaborate with? Which programs make sense for your organization? Do you have the staff to deliver the program that best meets the needs of your clients? Or do you need to consider a good program, which you have the appropriate staff and resources for already? If you build it, will the clients come? These are all reasonable questions, but with some planning, these and other challenges can be tackled. So over the next few slides, I'm going to talk through what I see as key considerations as you are finding the right fit for a new dementia program. For most organizations that seek to introduce new programs or services, the long-term goal is sustainability. How can this new program or service become an embedded, fiscally responsible addition to our service mix? And it can be argued that when introducing new programs or services, these boxes you see here, meaningfulness, clients, program characteristics, and all the rest, they represent areas that need to be considered when selecting a program and working towards sustainability. So first, meaningfulness. What is the mission of your organization? Introducing a new program doesn't mean you should go very far afield from your core mission, but it could be an opportunity to expand and stretch that mission to serve your clients and community in a way that complements your ongoing mission. Is your mission along the lines of to provide care, services, advice, and support to persons living with Alzheimer's disease and related disorders and their families and caregivers? Would it be meaningful to your community and still in line with your mission to provide care, services, etc. to people at risk for Alzheimer's disease or related disorders? In finding the right fit of programs, what outcomes matter most? Is changing the functional ability of the person living with dementia important to your organization? Or maybe it is to decrease the depression of caregivers. There's no wrong answer, but it's important to know and think about what outcomes matter most. My colleague often brings up the term or the item purposeful engagement. The intent being to consider whether it is important to your organization that any new service or program includes the opportunity to engage the person living with dementia or a family caregiver in a purposeful rather than a simply functional way. For example, there's really wonderful home-delivered meal programs out there that allow for maybe a quick, friendly visitor. There's also really helpful meal delivery programs that just drop a meal at the door and there's no friendly visitor. Both are really important, but one you could argue has a little bit of that value add. So I think that's what we mean by purposeful engagement here. So community characteristics. We need to consider, are there enough people in your community who would realistically use your new program or service? Would your new program actually be new? Or is there already another organization providing it to most people? Who might be competition? And could they be transformed into partners? Stakeholders can help make the program launch and sustain. These stakeholders may be internal to your organization, such as the board of directors, or the stakeholders could be external, such as funders, referral partners, even potential clients. Stakeholders should be identified and acknowledged as a resource to help you understand the parameters in your community where your new program will occur and flourish. What are the funding streams for your new dementia program or service? I use the plural here, streams. They're because, as we'll touch on later, you will likely need more than one funding stream as you launch and sustain your program. Maybe you obtain initial funds from a local foundation or county government funds. Those funds often have a time limit, and then what? Planning ahead for more grant applications, a long-time benefactor, or even setting up a fee schedule for clients to participate may all be options that are considered early on. If the program's a success, it would really be unfortunate if it has to stop. There's no ongoing source of funding. Your clients. Before embarking on a program, you have a chance to review who your organization is already serving. It may be clear to you the values and needs of your clients, or maybe it's an opportunity to ask, do they value innovation? Do they value inclusion and diversity? Are the spectrum of client needs clear, or could you dig deeper to learn about other needs that your organization might be able to address? For example, if your organization serves a growing number of people who are in the early stages of dementia, have there been town halls, listening sessions, or even surveys to learn the needs of these individuals and their caregivers? Or have your staff begun to alert you to repeating themes they see in the clients they work with? As Dr. Bass will note in his talk, some programs for people with dementia and caregivers may require different levels of ability and willingness to participate. Do you see your clients as active participants who would welcome an interactive program? Or might they be more passive and benefit from an education-only program? If a program might involve directly the person with dementia, what level of engagement would be possible with your clients? Are they early stage or more advanced in their disease progression? Organization infrastructure. So looking internally at your organization, let's consider the infrastructure, which in this case is very much driven by the staff. Is there a leader or champion who is looking to advance a new program and who will help see it through to fruition? Maybe it's a team of leaders, from a board of directors to an executive director or even a clinical staff member. In selecting a new program, it will be important to have the right staff who can deliver the program. Maybe they're already on staff, or maybe some new hires or additional training will be needed. This is true not just for delivery, but also for supervision and support for the staff who are delivering the new program. This could be an opportunity to partner with another organization who has expertise in training on dementia topics, such as providing skills for caregivers. Is your organization and staff open to change and trying something new? Because change can be scary, and new can be scary. People may question whether what they are doing before was not enough, or whether they have the skills to deliver a new program. A champion and leader can assess the landscape of the staff and also share the message about the new opportunities, such as skill enhancement, serving more clients, expanding the service mix, all those opportunities that a new program could allow for. So we touched a bit on this before, but how will a new program fit with your organization? Will you be looking to go pretty far beyond your current mission and program mix? Or will a new program be a logical extension of your mission and current programming? Neither way is wrong. It just depends on the organization you have and the outlook on these opportunities. One piece, and maybe it doesn't quite fit perfectly on this slide, but as you're finding the right fit, I think it helps you to have experts at your side. So when I need a new pair of running shoes, I know I seek out an expert who's going to guide me towards the right pair for my running style, shoe size, whether I need a neutral shoe or a stable shoe, or even shoe type for trail running. Well, the same could be said for finding the right program fit. Are there experts linked to the programs you are considering, or experts linked to the populations you are looking to start working with? Maybe you want to have a quality measurement and quality improvement plan in place, and you don't have those skills in-house. Accessing experts in these areas can help you as you find, select, and begin a new program at your organization. We spoke earlier on organization program fit. Now I want to flip that. You have found a great program that you are excited about, but you should pause. Does it really fit with your organization's mission, staff, clientele, or could it really fit with just some minor modifications? The program you identify, is there evidence that it works? Whether that means it's beneficial for the clients or it's beneficial from an investment standpoint for the organization. Thinking again to sustainability, it's important to consider how the evidence of the program can be used to sustain it for long term. Again, for that program, you need to know who is the target population. Is it caregivers for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are at risk for dementia? Or is it a program tailored specifically to caregivers for older adults in general? Knowing this will be important as you think about how to deliver the program in the community. Are there available protocols, manuals, workbooks, etc.? Or will you and your staff need to create these from scratch to make the program possible in your organization? Even something as simple as a checklist to keep track of whether the client has gone through all the parts of the program. If that checklist already exists, that's great. But if it doesn't, you're going to need some time set aside just to make sure that's created to help your staff. So there's a bullet here about evidence. How will you document the evidence that this program is doing what it should? Are there already data collection tools or monitoring procedures available? What's the most critical piece for you to have available? If a program was designed for caregivers for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are at risk for dementia, can that program be modified as needed for caregivers for older adults who have a dementia diagnosis already? How will that modification take place? Is the program reasonable? Will it be too resource heavy for you and for your clients? And is the program using the most up-to-date technology and care practices for your clients and organization? Or are there ways you can modify the program to make it more up-to-date if needed? Now, just a little bit about money and how you can make sure that your current and even new clients know about your program. As you've decided on a new program, it will be important to share that it is now an offering of your organization. So what methods will you use for marketing and advertising and understanding your market? Is it social media, TV, newspaper ads, robocalls? Recently, I talked with an organization who had 15 potential clients, and they hadn't even opened their doors yet. It was all word of mouth and maybe a nicely placed article in Newsweek. But that's pretty impressive, that they already had 15 potential clients and hadn't even opened their adult day. Related to marketing, but also related to sustainability, is costs. What are the direct and indirect costs of any new program? Will you need more space for any equipment or even have to buy more laptops? How will those costs be paid for? Do you have a grant, an endowment, funds from the city, county, or state? Maybe as you consider sustainability, it will be worth outlining fees or payment structures to keep the program going or even expand it to more people. So just as a brief summary, as noted earlier, it's important to begin sustainability discussions early, and I hope you saw as we talked through the other elements how they connect with sustainability planning. So just to review, key elements of sustainability from inside your organization include the buy-in, interest, and willingness of your clients, staff, and leadership, as well as identifying ways to make a program part of your service options long-term. Externally, just as with internally, it's important to maintain a pulse on what is going on in your community and in the service field. Do you expect that long-term there will be enough clients in your area who will use this program? Any reason to think there will be a large uptick or exodus of possible clients? Will the program be economically feasible in your area? Will a high-cost program in a low-income area have enough return on investment over the long term? Also, important to keep an eye to the outcomes being achieved or maintained. Keeping an older adult living at home longer is often a great outcome. And will these outcomes indicate you should shift your thinking about the program and service delivery mix? And finally, revenue streams. You may start out with grant funds, as noted earlier, but those often don't last forever, and you will want to be able to deliver quality programs to your clients. What skills, plans, and structures can be put in place to make this all possible over the long term? That was my brief comments, and I want to thank you all for listening to this overview of key considerations before launching a new dementia program. I am now going to turn it over to Dr. Bass, and later we will both answer some questions. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Appreciate support from the Administration for Community Living. And I'm here representing a team of folks that developed a new product that can help with a lot of the issues that Dr. Many discussed. And this is on my first slide. This is really my most important slide, because in the middle of the slide you'll see a hyperlink to BPC Best Practice Caregiving.caregiver.org. Don't go yet to that hyperlink. Don't leave the webinar, but I hope that soon after the webinar you'll get a chance to go to this online resource and play with it and see it. And it is called Best Practice Caregiving, and it is part of the Family Caregiver Alliance website. The goal of this project that we've completed to launch this online resource was really to increase the availability of evidence-based programs for family caregivers of people living with dementia. And it is for professionals, so it is designed to help professionals choose new programs. Following up on Dr. Many's comments about what we think of as an advancement in the field has been the development and testing of many non-pharmacological programs that have proven benefits for family caregivers, friend caregivers, of people living with dementia. Some of those programs also help the person living with dementia as well, and a subset of them are ready for broad-scale community implementation. Here are examples of the kinds of things that these programs assist with. One of the things we often hear from people is that these programs are all alike, and one of our goals was to show how the programs were different from one another. And if you look through this list of the types of assistance provided, you can see there's a wide range of things these programs do. Although these programs have been proven in research and some of them have been implemented in community settings, most of these programs are not available to most family caregivers and friend caregivers. Very few healthcare and community organizations offer any of these programs, and there are a number of reasons why these programs are not more widely available. One of them is that they're difficult for professionals to know about these different programs. There's no one place people can go to find out about them. If you go to research articles that were published in the testing and development of these programs, it's hard to find information that healthcare and community organizations need if they want to decide whether a program is right for their organization, right for their community. Following up again on Dr. Many's comments about how you choose a program. So if you want to know about the program's manuals, the quality of those manuals, the form they have, the characteristics of the staff who deliver the program, whether there's training for delivery staff, and the costs of programs, it's difficult to find that information in published research articles, even if you can find those research articles. Best practice caregiving is one part of what we think of as a solution to the lack of availability of these programs in most communities. It is an easy-to-use online tool for professionals. We've included 42 proven dementia caregiving programs, and for each program, there's a comprehensive profile of the characteristics of those programs with an emphasis more on implementation characteristics of the program, some information on the research, but more emphasis on implementation, because we really want this to be a tool for organizations and providers who are looking to add a new program. We also include information about the experiences of those organizations that are doing the program now. So although not widely available, there are organizations delivering some of these programs, and we've collected information from those organizations so you can find out how has it gone for them when they've offered these programs. We've given an overview of the research studies and findings, enough to give you a good flavor for what was found in the research. We've provided complete program bibliographies. If you want to go to those research articles, Best Practice Caregiving has links to all the published articles for each program. And importantly, there's a name and contact information for how you reach the person who distributes the program now to find out more about how you can actually start a program in your organization. It was very tricky for us to develop the eligibility for best practice caregiving. This slide has our 3 eligibility criteria. I'm not going to go into these in depth, but we know we didn't include all programs. We struggled with drawing the line at which programs should be eligible and which shouldn't. So that's a caveat to best practice caregiving that we have to acknowledge, but this will at least show you what are the characteristics we focused on. We also know there are more programs waiting in the wings to come into best practice caregiving that we didn't know about, even though we tried hard to find all programs that have been out there and have been tested in research and have been made available in communities in real-world settings. But we didn't find them all, and we will be adding more programs over time as we discover new programs or people come to us about their programs. And if you know of a program that might meet these eligibility criteria, please let us know. We set out with a very inclusive definition of evidence-based. We could debate what is an evidence-based program, but We tried to include programs if they had had randomized trials done, but also programs that might have had evidence from pre-test, post-test studies without control groups. We focused on implementation and program characteristics, experiences of delivery sites, basics about research, and hopefully all the information an organization would need to take a next step toward program adoption. We had 4 sources of data that we collected. Here they are. I'm not going to go into this, but we tried very hard to pull as much information from multiple sources so that the profiles of these programs are comprehensive within best practice caregiving. Here is a list of the 42 programs that currently is in best practice caregiving. As I mentioned, we're going to be adding programs over the next few years. There are at least a dozen programs that we know of that we hope to add over in the coming years. So this 42 will probably increase very soon. As I mentioned, Best Practice Caregiving is part of the Family Caregiver Alliance website. This is the home page of Family Caregiver Alliance website, and unfortunately I'm not able to do a live demo of the website. I gave you the link in that very first slide so you can visit it and you can experiment with the information that's in there. Also, we will be having a live walkthrough of the website on February 5th. If you're interested in that, you can go to benrose.org, that's Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging's home website, and you can register for that webinar February 5th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're going to do a live demo of how the website works. You can see down at the bottom right, there's our logo. You can click on the Visit Now rectangle in yellow, and that will take you right to the Best Practice Caregiving online resource. Now I'm going to show you a series of slide shots of key features of the website so you can kind of get a feel for how it works and what's there. This is the landing page that you first come to when you go into Best Practice Caregiving. There's another page that gives you information about the methodology that we used, about how to use the online resource, and a number of other things, including these are our funders. So Best Practice Caregiving is a product of a 30-month project that we've recently completed. The John A. Hartford Foundation, the RRF Foundation on Aging, formerly known as the Retirement Research Foundation, and Archstone Foundation are the funders for Best Practice Caregiving and have been incredibly helpful over these last 3 years of working on this. Here's a list of our project team. This is a joint project between Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging and Family Caregiver Alliance, as well as Katie Maslow from the Gerontological Society of America. Here's a list of our advisory committee members who were incredibly helpful along the way. And this is what you come to from the landing page if you click View Programs. So this is the beginning of looking at the different programs that are in Best Practice Caregiving. And there are 42 programs. You can see the note on the right a little above the center of the screen where it's showing 1 through 20 of 42 programs. So you can browse through this list of programs and get a synopsis with a little bit of information about key features, such as the delivery person, what kind of format the program's in, what languages it's offered in, how many sessions is it, what's the length of the program in total. You can find the program developer's name on the right side of the name of the program, that first one being Acquiring New Skills While Enhancing Remaining Straight. You can see Catherine Judge as the developer. And importantly, on the left side, you can see different ways of filtering or selecting down a subset of the 42 programs based on the characteristics of those programs. It's hard to show you this in action, but I'll show you this next slide, what I did was I filtered the programs by those that were available all or in part in Spanish. So on the left side there, you see I have Spanish as one of the languages checked. There are 17 programs that are available in Spanish. If I filter one more time and check Spanish and programs that are available by telephone, you can see on the left-hand margin I have Spanish and telephone with those blue background check marks. It takes me down to 9 of the 42 programs that have those two characteristics. There's lots of ways to sort the programs. I know I've talked with a number of people who wanted to know about programs that impacted caregiver depression as an outcome. And you can filter programs by those that have research results that show a significant reduction in caregiver depression. So many ways to sort and filter programs. Then, if you were to, let me go back one, if you were to click on the Learn More blue rectangle about a given program, it'll bring up a very detailed program of all the information we have for each program. So I picked one, BRI Care Consultation, which is the program that I've been part of the development of. And I'm going to just go through here real quickly. On the left-hand side, a real nice feature is that it's a list of all the articles that have been published about each program. You can click on those articles and it'll take you either to the full article, if we're allowed to do that without violating copyright agreements, or at least to an abstract and a full reference that you can go to get that article. So if you have students or staff who want to read more about the background on an article, easy to find published articles for every program. Then you can see there's 3 big categories of information: program information, survey of delivery sites, and research evidence. Each of these expands to provide a great detail of data elements. So this page, I expanded a bit on the very first rectangle, program information, and the second one there, program components. I expanded that, and one of the things that you can find are the types of assistance that programs provide, who it's provided to, and whether the assistance is provided directly, whether it's provided by giving information, by training caregivers, or by giving referral to sources that can help with each thing. Each of these different types of assistance also expands if you want to look at that level of detail. This slide expanded coordinating and monitoring care and services, and you can see it expands to 4 different subtypes, including coordinating and monitoring medical care, coordinating and monitoring home and community services, and so forth. Another category that was expanded was planning for current or future care. In total, there are 54 different specific types of assistance that you can see for each program if you want that much detail. Going on to the program information, you can see the target populations and the cost for delivering a program. You can see the staffing required to deliver the program and what kind of training is provided, refresher training, initial training. There's another field for training of supervisors if that's relevant. This goes on to the second big category of information, survey of delivery sites. So what are the experiences of organizations that have tried each program? And you can see information there about how long they've been doing the program, how many people have been served, what are the characteristics of those people. These are just examples of what you can find about the experiences of delivery sites. Here's some more of that, which gives some information about the organization's perceptions of challenges and successes that they've had delivering the program, and their perceptions of the impact of the program. This goes on to the third category, the research evidence. So you can find a lot of information about what the research outcomes were for each study, the types of research designs used in the studies. There are simple summaries like this chart. These all expand if you want more detail. And if you want a lot of detail, you can go into a description of each of the studies, which gets into more in-depth about the details of the sample and the research methodology, including a specific reference to to a particular article or articles about a study. One other feature of the website is ability to do side-by-side comparisons. So this is an example of the compare feature. I picked 3 programs here. Each of these programs are put in its own column, and underneath you have your choice of many different characteristics that you can compare programs. This next slide shows you a selected number of those characteristics. So you can do these kinds of side-by-side comparisons to see what programs right for you and your organization. That's all the slides I have to show you the website. I will tell you that we are continuing to work on best practice caregiving. We are beginning a 2-year dissemination grant funded currently by the John A. Hartford Foundation, with a number of other foundations being approached about possible funding. Our goal is to really make this website known so people use it, so please go to it, tell other people about it. We will be updating the information in the website regularly so that everything stays current. We'll be adding new programs. We're trying to develop a system for financial sustainability so this website continues for many years, well beyond this 2-year implementation or dissemination grant. And we'll be evaluating the impact of the website and refining its content. We're also exploring possible expansions. We really want to do an add-on for consumers so that family and friend caregivers can go to this to find out exactly where they can go to get one of these programs if they're interested. And please watch for that in the future. One of the limitations of best practice caregiving is that we only focused on programs that were tested and had been implemented in the U.S. We'd love to expand that beyond the United States, but we haven't done that yet. And we haven't included programs unless they had positive, statistically significant outcomes for family or friend caregivers. If they're a program targeted just to people with dementia, then they're not included, and we'd like to expand in that direction too. And that's the end of my slide, so I'll pass it back to Sari.
Great. Thank you so much to both of you for such wonderful presentations. I want to remind everyone we're going to move to a question and answer session right now. You can enter your questions into the question and answer chat pod onto the webinar platform. We already have some questions that have come in, so I'll start with some of those. The first question is about memory cafes, and the description ahead of the question has some details in it that I'm going to read to both of you. And Heather, if you could respond first, that would be great. So the question is, or the statement before is indicating, memory cafes, as many of us know, are cost-effective programs that appear to reduce social isolation for people living with dementia at any stage due to any underlying condition and also their care partners. Cafes are growing worldwide and across the United States. In Wisconsin and Massachusetts, each of those states have over 120 cafes, but there hasn't been a rigorous multi-site evaluation of the model. So cafes are left out of these kinds of compendiums of evidence-based programs. The organizations that are running the cafes don't have resources to conduct the research. So how can we interest researchers or funders to take on this evaluation project? Dr. Meni, can you respond first and then turn it over to Dr. Bass for any additional comments?
Sure, Sari, not a problem. I think this is a really great question because in addition to memory cafes, there are other really great programs out there that haven't gotten to that point yet of having a rigorous evaluation. A couple of ideas come to mind. As I noted in my slides, it's important to be able to consider collaborations, and maybe there is some impetus to work with local universities that have eager graduate students, sometimes eager young faculty, who can help you design an evaluation that could be low cost but still help you achieve a rigorous initial evaluation of the cost, but also program effectiveness of the programs. There could be some opportunities also to be looking at funders in your local communities or some of the foundations, maybe some of those that Dr. Bass mentioned or others who really are starting to show more of an interest and emphasis on programs serving people with dementia and their caregivers. Those could be some additional resources to be looking at. But Dr. Bass, do you have any other thoughts or ideas about this?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It gives me a chance to just say a little bit more about programs that are not in best practice caregiving. There are lots of good programs out there that haven't been tested in rigorous research. And it doesn't mean those programs don't work, but we think it's important to know that a program achieves measurable, tangible outcomes, and that's what we were looking for best practice caregiving. And there are many organizations that would love to collaborate around testing of existing programs such as the memory cafes. Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging has an evaluation research arm that does this kind of work. As Dr. Meny said, many universities would be interested. So I hope you approach researchers because I think it's important to demonstrate positive effects of things that we know are good programs, because it really is a way of making sure we're talking about quality of services in a way that pushes the envelope toward better programs.
Great, thank you. Dr. Bass, the next question is for you. Can you talk a little bit more about the methodology that you use to find the programs that are included in the Best Practice Caregiving website?
Yes, we tried everything that we could do. We all are very active in different professional associations, so we looked through conference programs. We did online searches of all the databases that have inventories of all published articles. We looked in bibliographies of published articles about other articles, including, very helpful were meta-analyses that had done comparisons of programs or had highlighted programs that were evidence-based programs. The criteria that were the hardest for us to make sure we knew was that programs had to have been implemented in a community setting to get into best practice caregiving, so that we knew that they could work in a real-world setting. And for that, we had to have lots of conversations with program developers to find out where programs have been done beyond a research study.
Great, thank you. Do you, for community-based organizations that have implemented the various interventions, do you include their contact information on the website?
Not at this time. We give information about their reports of their experiences, but we haven't yet gotten their permission to have them listed. As we move into adding a consumer part to this website so families can find out the organizations that are delivering those programs, we will be adding that. And we will be adding a mapping feature even before we move to consumers so that you'll be able to see at least which communities are doing the programs, even if we don't have permission to display the actual organization names. But that's a great question, and we hope to enhance best practice caregiving along those lines.
Another similar question about whether this information is included. Is there a way to sort by different types of dementia in best practice caregiving?
Yes, that's one of the variables that's used in the filtering options.
Great, thank you. Okay. We have another question about costs of programs. You may have reviewed this and folks didn't catch it, but is there information about the cost or average cost of these programs on the website?
There's information in best practice caregiving on costs related to licensing, data hosting, any costs related to delivery tools that are required. So you can see those costs in dollars and cents. You can also see costs related to training. If you want to know the total cost of delivering a program, you can see the types of staff and the level of training of those staff who are required, and then it requires you to kind of extrapolate and think about staff salaries and that sort of thing. So we don't have that information. But costs for getting permission, for licensing, for delivery tools, those costs are presented.
Great, thank you. Okay, scrolling through all these great questions that are coming through. We have another question about whether either of you can talk about programs that have been found effective in rural areas, or if any of that information is available on the website, Dr. Bass.
Yes, that is one of the filtering criterion is rural communities. So you can find programs that have at least been tested, if not implemented, in rural settings.
Great, thank you. Heather, anything you want to add about the rural programs in rural areas in terms of finding one that would work for more of a rural location?
I guess some considerations I would just put out there is, while there may be programs that come through as being operated and delivered in rural areas, it really takes important thinking to play through what costs there may be to that. If there's a lot of travel involved in it, for, like, say, one-on-one sessions between a family and a caregiver and a staff member, that could be very time and resource consuming. So it's kind of weighing the pros and cons of that. Or could a program be delivered in a group setting? So maybe the staff member just travels to a very remote area once a month and can deliver the program versus having to go out there several times in that month to meet individually with families. So it's kind of playing through how that works best for your organization to provide some of those programs and services.
Great, thank you. Are there any suggestions from either of you on how to find program evaluators who will work well in a home and community-based setting as opposed to through, a university or a research organization? Do you have any recommendations in that area?
I can't pass it up, but call Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging or contact me via email. That's our specialty in terms of our evaluation research side.
And Dr. Many, do you have any suggestions of, warehouses that might have this information or other agencies that folks can look into?
I got distracted by Dr. Bass's response, but I am trying to think of a good additional response to that. Sometimes I've seen this in the past, sometimes the AAAs will actually have some in-house counsel or in-house staffing that can maybe provide some input and experience on this. There have also been the occasions, based on some prior experience, where the State Units on Aging can provide some guidance on these activities to see these things through and properly evaluate. I will ponder that some more and maybe follow back, but thanks.
I have one other comment that's a little less self-serving. In best practice caregiving, we have a list of program developers for all the different programs and their contact information. Many of those individuals are people who are very sensitive to being able to test programs in real-world settings, in community organizations and healthcare systems, and have a good bit of experience with it. So you could go through best practice caregiving. You could look at some of the articles that you can link to about each program, and you can find individuals in those articles, including program developers, who have done the kind of work in community organizations, in healthcare settings, and would be experienced with that kind of research. So I think that it could be a helpful tool for identifying a number of people who are very experienced with the kind of research you're talking about.
Great, thank you. Someone had asked earlier about organizations that have implemented some of these various evidence-based interventions. And the National Alzheimer's and Dementia Resource Center does have one document that may be useful. It's on the NADRC website. It's called Grantee Implemented Evidence-Based and Evidence-Informed Interventions. And in that document, you can see the current and previous grantees that are implementing or plan to implement various evidence-based and evidence-informed interventions. Some of those will cross-reference to what you see in the Best Practice Caregiving website. There is overlap there between the various evidence-based interventions. So I just wanted to make sure folks had that information, and you can always contact me for the specific link, but I will try and send it out to all of you. Let's see, some more questions here. We have time for a few more. Are there any programs that either of you know of that are particularly good for, this is going outside the helping caregivers of people with dementia, but helping people with dementia that are from Latino families and outreach that has worked to gain effective participation? It was a little bit off the caregiving topic, but thought you might be able to comment.
I think there are a number of programs in best practice caregiving that have been used with Spanish-speaking populations, and you could filter and sort programs and look at the published articles and the description of the delivery sites that have done those programs, including the populations they've served. So I think you can find a good bit of information using the website. It'll just take a little bit of creative sorting.
And to follow up on what Dr. Bass just noted, I think that's an important consideration. It was brought to my attention not too long ago that there are some really good Spanish-speaking and sometimes culturally appropriate Hispanic programs, but there can be variation. So the Spanish-speaking Hispanic population in Southern California may differ from that similar population, but living in the Chicagoland area. So looking at where those programs are being delivered can be quite informative. And so I think that's an additional great benefit of the BPC.
Yeah. I might also mention that one of our advisory committee members, Deborah Cherry, is a very knowledgeable expert on on this topic and is listed in the website as one of our advisory members from Alzheimer's Los Angeles. Be a great contact.
Yes, and Dr. Cherry actually just presented at our last webinar on their telenovela work, which is aimed at the Latino population and helping to educate about dementia. So not a specific intervention, but a program that is aimed at the population. So that also could be a resource. And someone just wrote in about that as I was saying that, so thank you for that information and the reminder. Okay, so let's see. I'm seeing most of these are repeated questions. One more question, just to reiterate, the journal articles that are listed on the BPC website, are they all peer-reviewed or some of them peer-reviewed? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. We tried to list all articles that had been published about a particular program, regardless of which journals they were published in. We did not include newsletters, blogs, that sort of thing, but if they were published in a I'll say more academic journal, even if not peer-reviewed, those articles are listed.
Great, thank you so much. I have two, we're kind of running out of time for questions, but there are two questions where I just want to announce the answers to everyone. One person just asked about resources for LGBTQ communities. You can mention, Dr. Bass, if there's anything on the website about that, but I also wanted to mention to everyone that on April 13th, we will be hosting a webinar on that topic, LGBTQ communities and persons with dementia. So watch out for that announcement. And I did want to open it up to if either of you know of specific programs that reach that community.
I believe that the best practice caregiving has some information about that. That's also an area that's of particular interest to my colleagues and I at Benjamin Rose, so I'd be happy to take emails and provide more individualized responses to that. We work with a group called Diverse Elders Coalition doing work around caregiving, and that's one of the important areas. The LGBTQ population and programs for them is a major focus of the Diverse Elders Coalition. So again, please don't hesitate to email me about that.
Great. Another question was just asking for the information about our next webinar. And our next webinar in this series will be February 12th, and it is on occupational therapy and social work, offering community-based approaches to support people living with dementia and their caregivers. So we hope you join us for that webinar as well. We are going to close out now for our afternoon, and I want to thank both of our speakers again for a lively presentation and some great information for our participants. And I'll turn it back to Steve Morse for some final remarks.
Thank you very much, Sari, and I also want to thank our presenters here today, Heather and David. Great presentation. It is time for us to wrap up here, everyone. We do appreciate you joining today's webinar.